sleep at night and you can't. That's weird. What did I do?
Well, it's hard because you almost have to give your permission to say it is okay to not be okay.
Right.
You have to get up. You just have to keep getting back up.
But then I had such survivor's guilt because I was like, I literally did a presentation once, and a woman who is still currently, I'm not going to drop names, but this is powerful. She is still currently the founder and CEO of a world-renowned anti-trafficking organization.
Wow.
After I got off stage, she literally got in my face and said, your trauma couldn't have been that bad for you to talk up there like this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That.
And so that, it's like, what? I literally just turned around and walked away because I'm like, what do you even say to that?
Oh my God,
like,
if it was you now,
oh yeah,
I could just picture what you're saying.
I would have.
Now.
I
would have said,
yeah.
move out of my way. Oh
yeah. I mean, how dare she say something like that?
Like, I've been told all kinds of things. I had another woman who wanted to rep me as a PR agent, told me that if I didn't use her, my children would get raped and killed.
Oh my God.
Because she was the only one who knew how to protect me. People are fucked up.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of life.
And
like,
they're going to challenge you.
Right.
And make you feel like a piece of shit if you don't feel good about yourself.
Right. Or if you don't feel bad enough about yourself.
Yeah.
Like, people just wanted me to feel bad about myself. And that was my challenge. That was my competitive. Because they're like, oh, Jess, you can't, you've been through too much. You're just always going to be like this. You're always going to have these problems. You literally can't heal. Like, you can't heal through that. No one's done that. And I'm just like, fuck you, watch me. Like, like I don't know what else to do. Like,
exactly. And I know that when I just started sharing some parts of my story that people reached out to me and were like, you never told me that. And I have to come back with, I don't, this is me. This is how I'm processing it. And I don't really have to give, I don't know. It's just like people get mad or people get offended, or you lose friends because they're like, oh, she's just too much. She's too much.
Yep.
Too much going on in her life. Well, I had to learn, you know what? This is my self-healing journey. I want to be happy, and this is how I'm going to be happy. If you don't want to be part of it, then
yeah,
sorry.
Yeah.
A fear of leaving people behind.
Yeah.
That is a very real thing, and something, because I lost friends when I lost weight. We're losing friends as we are rising, like, financially. When you start to hit those levels of financial prosperity, you lose people because they're bitter.
They don't even like to see you push through.
Right.
They see you push through for over a year, and it's like, wow, that's a new cycle. I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
You just have to get to those roots or accept that this is your life.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the struggle. Yeah, and you know what? Both are fine. I lived for a solid 4 years where I just refused to help anyone. So we got to this point where I was public with my story. I'm teaching, I'm training, I'm like doing some of the most amazing, noteworthy things. Like, I felt like I was really like rising to this pinnacle where, you know, it's like when I taught at Yale, I co-wrote the program that helped reform foster care for the state of Connecticut. Like, I have built models that are being used all over the country. Like, there were these really amazing things. And as we continued to just do the work, there were some core foundational systemic problems within the anti-trafficking movement. And my favorite quote of all time is, the only thing we learn from history is that we never learn from history. And so my whole life I've been studying history. And what I realized, that if you look at the anti-trafficking movement, that really is only about 10 to 12 years old. And you look at the domestic violence movement, which is, 30 years older than that. And then you look at civil rights, which is 60 years older than that. You see these movements that when they started, the first decade or so is a really sensational, dramatic, and doesn't have a lot of resources, because the word is just starting to be used. The ideas are just starting to come about, and they don't really understand the marketing, how to create awareness around this thing. And so they fuck a lot of people up. There's really bad.
Lots of turmoil.
Lots of problems, no real solutions. And we were a part of that. And I had done somewhere around 150 placements into programs, residential programs that were heavily vetted. And I have never had one be successful.
And that's
never had one.
Yeah.
And so we walked away from everything. Now I figured a lot of things out, started to talk about it. We lost funding because when you have about face and okay, this isn't working, we need to do this. And a lot of our funding was faith-based, and they just couldn't get over some things like praying people ungay. And we just walked away. We lost everything, walked away.
It was in our intention to reach anyone who could align with a message of just removing the harm. Just remove the harm first. And there was just more and happening. Mm-hmm. And when you were able to, you're teaching into the state of Connecticut for the foster system, I felt I know there's a lot of brag-worthy things, but if I could just brag on you, that is incredible, because as we've just pulled ourselves completely out of this, we're losing everything. In that instant, we're losing everything. And it's we have to figure out how to reset our lives now. Mm-hmm. I mean,
it was all that came together at the same time, because I figured it all out. My brain works like Tinker Toys. Yeah. I build things in my head and I try to knock them over. And so towards the end of my time in the anti-trafficking movement, I couldn't knock over the systems anymore. Yeah. They were working, and they were working so extraordinarily well, but I saw that I built it on ground that wasn't working. Yeah. So I just had to take my system and I literally put it in a box. Yeah. And I said, this is my brain. And I will come back to it some other time, but I need a break. I need to divorce the movement. I will come back to it. It's time for some self-care. And one of my close friends killed himself. There were some major deaths that happened right there. Yeah. And we moved to Texas. Yeah. And 6 months after we moved to Austin, our youngest son became paralyzed from Lyme disease. And he, after spending time in the hospital, they sent him home on hospice. He wasn't supposed to live. We ended up pulling every resource in the world out of a bag and completely healed him with a team of people using Indian, Chinese, natural medicine, chiropractic, all kinds of, every kind of wookie stuff. We did it all. If it worked, we did it. Because when you're 5, he was 4. Yes. And we're not losing our 4-year-old son. Yeah. In the process, we ended up with $3.2 million in medical bills. And so any credit we had was just it was actually good, but it was then gone. And then we realized as he was paralyzed and then got better and then became paralyzed again, that it had to do, we had the relapse in his health because of the cedar trees that are around Austin. So we moved to the Gulf Coast, and we lived 13 blocks from the beach, saltwater, sand. It really does help heal a body. Mm-hmm. And he was totally healthy for 9 months. And then Hurricane Harvey was a direct hit over the little town that we lived in. And it was a small community to start with. When you read the news, they hardly made the news. It was all about Houston, except that Ellen did give the town a gym, which was really cool because we lost 80% of the entire town.
That was a pretty freaking incredible thing.
It was
literally, Ellen herself paid for the entire.
She paid for the high school gym of the town we were in. But because we knew we were vulnerable, we had carried insurance on our RV, and we did the right thing. We didn't know that was actually the wrong thing. because the $7,000 payout for the replacement of our RV is not enough to replace an RV for 7 people. But because it was older, that was their max payout. And because we got that $7,000, we were then denied by FEMA and Red Cross. And so we were literally just in this space where for like 18 months, we were renting the property, the land that our RV was on, but it had experienced Harvey. So it's like kitchens mostly gone, bathrooms half gone. Like we cooked over a hole in the ground for 18 months. And it was during that time that like there were no jobs left because everything got blown away. And so we started a business we were making high-end furniture and planters and stuff like that out of debris. And we started live streaming shows on Facebook because we knew we needed encouragement at such a deep level and such a regular level that we just couldn't even get it. Like we were in this new town where like, we don't know anybody. We've only been here 9 months. We're just trying to keep our son alive. Yeah. And like, now everything's gone and there's like looters and, it's like you get those Texas good old boys, 10 of them in the back of a truck, shotguns, like, and I'm like a pacifist. Like I'm a do no harm, take no shit person. I learned how to stand on the corner and tell people to get the fuck out of my neighborhood. Like I found all of my fierce power. There was one time a guy, these 2 guys, they pulled up on the side of the road and they were dumping a big screen TV just as garbage on the side of the road. And I went out to the fence and I told them to load the shit right back up, take it away. And they did. Wow. Like, I am.
We did not fuck around.
Right.
I mean, there's neighbors that were 4 houses down. And when they got to sounding violent over there, all I had to do was yell really, really loud in my giant voice and tell them,
they listen.
Shut the fuck up. And solve their problems right now, or there's gonna be trouble. Like it's weird. Like you don't want to be in that situation, but I'm telling you, our fierce fighter side of we get what we want, and people who want to fuck around get in the way of it. It was just like hardcore, right. Like just coming out.
It was raw survival. We ended up live streaming 160 some shows from a tent on Facebook. Yeah. And Reid's an amazing musician. His vocals are unreal. He does like NSYNC and Britney Spears and Whitney Houston and stuff. Like we have so much fun. And so we just started live streaming and just playing, and we became like this joy for the community, like because we were all going through it together. Yeah. And at the same time, I had this breaking point where I was smiling, like Robin Williams is what comes to mind, because I was having so much fun out here, but inside I'm living in tents. I'm feeding my family out of a hole in the ground. I'm sick of beans and rice. I can't figure out how to get out of this situation. I couldn't see the pathway. And I didn't know anybody because like I had a few friends, but it wasn't as deep as what I needed, because we had also left our faith, as like we left the anti-trafficking movement, and leaving our faith had nothing to do with the pain that we experienced. I just asked too many questions and went too deep. And I'm not bitter and I'm not angry. Like I love people. We just left. But because of that, we were really hurt, and a lot of people rejected us because we were no longer a part of their faith. Yeah. And that pain was so raw that we were alone. And I ended up calling the suicide hotline 3 different times, where I just was like, listen, I've been in the mental health field. I'm not suicidal. Like I'm not planning yet. But all I can think about is how my life insurance would really help my family out of this situation, because we don't have any family. Like my whole family's dead. Reid's family isn't safe. So our kids would go into foster care. So no matter where we've been, we've held on to this life insurance. And that is like the only thing we've had. that if something happens, they have money. And I was like, I don't want these thoughts to keep taking me over. I need help.